My name is Myrna Skolny, and this is another video in my series on Staffordshire pottery figures of the 1780 to 1840 period. A while ago, I made a pilgrimage to Polstead, a quintessential Sussex village with a population of around 800. But in 1828, 200,000 people reportedly visited it because it had been the scene of the Red Barn murder, which is perhaps the most sensationalized crime of all time. The murder was recounted as a ripping yarn in news sheets, ballads, and penny dreadfuls of that time, and popular Victorian melodramas lured enthusiastic audiences. It made ideal theatre fare, and in the 20th century it even hit movie screens. Today it's still performed in theatres in English-speaking countries, and modern-day authors continue exploring the unanswered questions surrounding this tale of seduction and murder. Before looking at Staffordshire figures immortalizing the Red Barn murder, let's return to Sleepy Polstead in 1827, and I'll outline the key points. The victim was 25-year-old Maria Martin. She was no fair maiden, having borne 3 illegitimate children by 3 men. The perpetrator was William Corder, a year or so younger than Maria and the father of her last and recently deceased child. In May 1827, they agreed to meet at the Red Barn on Corder's farm to elope. Instead, Maria was left buried beneath the Red Barn floor. Corder hastened to London, married, and set up a school, but he wrote to Maria's family, claiming that she was with him and well. In April of the next year, 1828, Anne Martin, Maria's stepmother, whom this artist apparently thought was a look-alike of Maria, she supposedly dreamed that Maria's ghost had indicated that Maria was buried beneath the Red Barn floor. Enter Thomas Martin, Maria's father. He obediently dug up the floor, and lo and behold, Maria's body was right there, with Corder's green scarf around the neck. Corder was found and jailed here in nearby Bury St. Edmunds, where that August the Crown Court convicted him of Maria's murder and sentenced him to death by hanging only 4 days later. Before his execution, Corder confessed to shooting Maria, but he denied stabbing her, despite visible stab wounds on her corpse. As many as 20,000 people are said to have travelled from afar to witness Corder's hanging. Staffordshire potters climbed on the souvenir bandwagon and captured this marketable event in clay. This lovely Red Barn reads, "A view at the Red Barn at Polston." Polston rather than Polstead, because spelling was many a potter's weak point. Here, William is luring Maria through the open door, with the farmyard animals surrounding them. At almost 8 inches, it's delightful, a cozy scene with no indication of what is to come. The bocage is typical of the patriotic group Pottery, and the figures are original. William and Maria were from very different backgrounds. He was the educated son of a family with a 400-acre farm, but he was also a petty criminal with shady associates. She, on the other hand, was the daughter of the local mole catcher. The same Pottery made this Red Barn model without people. It's left to the viewer to imagine what happened behind that ominously closed door. It has impressed the Red Barn near Polstead, Bury St. Edmunds, and the bocage shading it adds presence. Again, it's almost 8 inches tall, and it is impressive. The bocage hovers precariously over it, and the modelling is particularly crisp. In reality, souvenir seekers plundered the Red Barn because even toothpick-sized splinters had market value, and soon nothing was left of it. Obadiah Sherritt's Pottery made this petite Red Barn, which measures under 5 inches in each direction. It is tiny, just perfect to enjoy on the palm of your hand, and it simply reads, "The Red Barn." The teeny figures of Corder and Martin are delightfully podgy, not, as you might imagine, a dashing, youthful couple about to elope. While other Red Barn models are known for multiple examples, this little gem is apparently unique. Given its price relative to its size, it must be the most expensive piece of property in Britain. Sherritt also made a larger Red Barn on a low green mound base, as we see here. Sherritt's red barn is more commonly found on footed brown bases, and this attractive red barn is his typical model, and the feet raise it to almost 9 inches. The cow is enormous. Sherritt also made this similar red barn that's in particularly fine condition with the original bocage and figures present. This time it's titled, and his stance and outstretched arms suggest that he's trying to lure her through that open door. Sherritt has substituted a huge pig for the cow we saw in the previous example. Also, he's added small, colourful floral garlands to the green grassy base. These garlands are specific to Sherritt and consistent with the attribution. Amazingly, this red barn is part of a 3-piece garniture. In contrast to the tiny figures on the red barn itself, the figures to either side are chunky and realistic, and they have a lifelike appearance that's almost ever only found in larger Sherritt figures. The component on the right is titled W. Corder before the judge. Corder is pointing at himself as if to say, "I did it." The design source is this print from a book of 1828 detailing the trial, and it established the image of Corder forever after. In reality, Corder, who was nicknamed Foxy, was a slim, nerdy, bespectacled fellow, and after his demise, the coroner and surgeon certified the image on the left as the truest likeness. The third component in this trio is titled W. Corder and M. Martin. Corder's attire is modified, and Maria is stout and doesn't resemble the prints we've seen of her, but then again, who really knows what she looked like? Corder's arms suggest he's guiding Maria through the red barn door. Notice the figure group of Corder and Martin together is entirely freestanding. There's no support behind it. These figures are particularly rare, and I dug into my archive to show you other examples I've recorded. These two went through auction in 1949, and clearly they're on different bases. The titling and her dress pattern are not typical of Sherritt, and this time the couple stand diagonally across the base. Also, his stance differs. He no longer has his right arm around her, and there's a support of sorts behind him. Another version of the couple, this time with a typical Sherritt base, dress pattern, and titling, and positioned as they are in the first version we saw. And another twist, those same Sherritt figures with a spill vase of a form that Sherritt manufactured as an armorial spill vase, as you see here. Sherritt also arranged the figures of Corder and Martin on this gorgeous spill vase. An inordinate number of pottery red barns are sad relics, which makes collecting them challenging. The patriotic group model here, but clearly minus its bocage. And this is the Sherritt red barn, but on a green mound base, and it's lost its bocage, its people, and even its enamels have been picked off. A Sherritt red barn, like the glorious one in the 3-piece garniture, but minus much of its bocage, Corder and Martin, and the animals. And yet another that has lost its bocage and its figures. If you compare these two relics, one is titled, the other is not, and the red barn on the right sits on a high green mound. It seems that no two Sherritt red barns are ever quite alike. I share with you this pair of tinsel-embellished theatrical prints of 1829 that hang on my wall. On the right, the actress Miss Cobb is fetchingly attired as Maria Martin, with the red barn suggestively in the background. On the left, Mr. Saville, gun drawn, is William Corder. Maria's tiny crumpled body lies to the right of his boot with "Maria lies dead" written under it. Most intriguing are the two characters lurking inside the red barn, suggesting, as some believe, that Corder had accomplices. Today, the Corder family's timber-framed farmhouse still stands, and on Martin Lane you can find the Martins' thatched cottage, which recently was an environmentally friendly bed and breakfast. The Norman church where Maria is buried is untouched. Souvenir seekers completely chipped away her gravestone, and only a wooden marker nailed to a shed reminds visitors that she lies here. Moyses Hall Museum in Bury St Edmunds houses ghoulish artifacts in a case. A book bound in Corder's tanned skin recounts his trial, Corder's scalp with his right ear attached, Corder's death mask and a bust made from it, and of course a Staffordshire pottery red barn. Phrenologists retained Corder's skull, which eventually rejoined the rest of his skeleton, and medical students used it into the 20th century when the very degraded bones became exhibits in the Royal College of Surgeons Museum in London. In 2004, a descendant claimed them and cremated them. Our journey into the past ends, but you can see more red barns within the covers of my books. Also, my website, mystaffordshirefigures.com, provides a wealth of information as well as free downloads of my 3-volume collection memoir titled Obsession and books on the works of individual potters. Thank you for watching. Remember, my help is always free, so if you have questions, email me.